Welcome to the React Build and Burn of the day. So, what we're going to be building today is this guy, which I just built in the past hour, refreshed my React skills. So, looking forward to it. So, all that it is it's a Morty card app. I called it Damn It Morty. We can call it whatever we want. And here, I can search a character's name. Whoops, I went too fast. Nice. Search a character's name and they pop up. Cool. And that's it. That's all that we're going to be building today. But let's take a second to look at what our hierarchy looks like, our component hierarchy. Whoops. There's a bug I got to fix in that, but it's a pretty minor bug. So our hierarchy, once it decides to load, did I hit the right button? Weird. There it goes. So our hierarchy looks something like this. We have our app, which is our overall container. We have this form, which is a stateless thing, and that is going to control inside of our app. Let me get rid of that. Why is it not showing me? Something's being weird with my dev tools. Not sure what exactly. Oh, they're all the way down there. I was like, what's going on? Okay. So my app has 3 states. It has all the characters, it has the selected characters, and it has the search input. So we're going to be able to have all those elements of state in our app. And then these 2 components are both going to be functional components. Our cards container, just a simple container. Our search form, just a simple search form. I did a very small amount of styling because fuck it, why not throw that in here? Awesome. Let's get to it. Now my favorite part. Let's check out the chat first. Oh, it's just all about Doomy. Understandably so. Oh, I did not mean to stop my share. Start that share again. And actually, I want to share my computer sound. I realize that sometimes, like when people ask questions, if I don't share my computer sound, it doesn't come through in the recordings. Awesome. So we are going to, this is my favorite part of the build and burn, or maybe not, the burn part. So we're going to go into our terminal. I'm going to go into my throwaway. Whoops. And in this case, we don't want any reference. So we are actually, I called mine, I have too many Rick and Morty apps. I called it something with Morty, I think. I called it BMB React app. Okay. So we're going to remove that. Remove RF BMB React app. Goodbye, React app. Let's start fresh. Let's start anew. Once that decides to delete, we're going to say create React app, and we're going to go, I'm going to do BMB Rick and Morty React filter. Great. While that's loading, let's go ahead and connect it up to GitHub because, fuck it, good practice, right? I'm going to go to github.com/new. I'm going to call this Rick and Morty filter build and burn. That'll do. This is a Rick and Morty filter. Whoops. Build and burn. I know that was really descriptive here. Create the repository. Blam. We are going to copy and paste some of this. We're going to do everything but that git add. So I'm going to go to my, well, first we have to open it up. So let's do code BMB. Now, instead of doing git add readme, we want to add all of these files. And into our staging for our next commit. So I'm going to type in git add all, and then I'm going to copy in all those other ones. Bam, my first commit. Do, which apparently all the instructors say. I had no idea. I think everybody just says do and they don't know what else to say. All right, now we've got a Git project. Let's check it out. Bam, good stuff. Now I created on my computer something that I could do where if I make a small change, I could type in add commit, and then I could just type in the message, I think. If I did this right, it should say nothing to commit, didn't change anything. And what that does is it's git add and git commit, but not git push. Cool. So that's just a little nifty thing I did. First thing that we're going to do is we're going to clean out a lot of the bullshit. We'll keep the favicon. Why not? Does everybody know what a favicon is?
That little thing that pops up in the tab.
Yep, that's all. Got our node modules. We got the git ignore with the node modules in it. Does everybody know what the git ignore is doing?
The files that don't go to your GitHub.
Yep. I'm going to get rid of this app.test. We'll keep the index.css and the app.css. We'll get rid of the index.js. We want that. We can get rid of the logo.svg. We could get rid of the service worker, I think. I don't know. I'm not going to delete it because I'm not actually sure if we can delete that. All right. First things first. Is app going to be a functional component or a class component? Or is it going to be a stateful component? Or is it going to be a stateless component? Somebody throw out the answer as quick as possible. We're trying to cruise today.
Stateful.
Stateful, it's stateful. And if it's stateful, is it going to be a function or a class?
Yes.
Class is right. Bam. This is going to break because we have that SVG that we deleted. So we are going to say class app. Get rid of that stuff. And we are going to need a render here. Bam. And then we just need to take that return statement, which I'm going to get rid of a whole bunch of stuff. Take that return statement, put it in here, and we need to return something in React. Otherwise, React says, what the hell, dude? Like, come on, bro. Our render is supposed to be a function. So I open it up as though it's a function. Bam. And now we just got to figure out what we want to return, which in our case, we can just go ahead and make a container for our app. So I'm going to say div, and we are going to give it an ID of app. Nice. Close that up. And just for the sake of knowing what the hell is going on here, boopity boop, we're going to make an H1. Whoopsie daisies, my typing skills are subpar. Bam. We'll call this, damn it, Morty. I like that name. That's what it was before. I think that's a good name. And let's just see if everything's working. npm start. We're going to go over to, while that's loading up, we'll go over here, pop open localhost 3000. Still loading, still loading, still loading, still loading, still loading, still loading, still loading. Can use light. Export default app. What'd I mess up there?
I think it's because you're not extending.
Yep, I don't. Nope, it's because I am missing a closing tag. There we go. Bam. Class constructor app cannot be invoked without new. Class app, does anybody know what I did wrong there?
Everything.
Nope, I forgot to extend React component.
Yeah. Right.
Extends React.component. Or actually what I'm going to do is I'm going to go in here and pull out component from this. Nice. So then I could just do extends component. And now it's working. Cool. To me, that looks like a thin vertical slice, and it looks like a great time to commit something. Unfortunately, though, my light server is running here, so I could either create something new here, or what I like to do so I can kind of see both at the same time is go here and split it up. So I'm going to go back to this one, split it up. Now I have my light server on the left, and if I need to create new files, I can do it right here. So I am going to, or do git commits or whatever. I am going to say add commit, and we are going to say boilerplate setup. Bam. Just made a commit. Good work. High five, everybody. All right. So the next thing that we're going to do, let's get this thing structured out. We're going to get it structured out. I would say the first thing that I'm going to need to do is fetch those characters, because whatever I'm going to do, it's going to be helpful if I could test it with the characters that exist. So the very first thing that I'm going to do is just get those characters and set their state. So first I'm going to create a state object. This state object is going to have, one of its things is going to be all the characters, is going to be one of the state items. And that's going to be an empty array because I'm going to be filling it out as time goes on. Great. Now I have to make a fetch. Fortunately, I made a nice little VS Code snippet for myself for the Rick and Morty API. So all I have to start typing in is damn it, Morty, and then I get that, which is great. And if anybody's curious about VS Code snippets, I suggest you look it up. In about 10 minutes, you can get up and running with them. And they're just nice if you have a chunk of code that you use all the time, such as maybe the string that references an API. So then we're going to do what? We're going to parse the response. Oh, that's weird. Why is this red? Why does my fetch look red when I put it there? Oh, right. It's because my fetch is supposed to go inside something in React. It's supposed to go inside a component did mount. And the component did mount is just a function, and whatever you put inside of there is what happens when this component mounts. Since this component is the app component, then that means that as this whole app loads, it only runs once. If we want, we can just check that and just say console.log ran through once. And we're going to go to our dev tools and, well, yeah, look, it ran through once. Something bad happened because I deleted a PNG or something. I don't know how to fix that, but we'll worry about, just ignore that one. So the next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to parse this response. So I'm going to say response goes to response.json, and then, whoa, I don't like that. And then we are going to set the state. So we are going to say, with our data that we get back, we are going to say, I'm going to open this up because there's two things that we want to happen. We're going to have the state of all characters. We're going to have the state of our filtered characters, or I'm going to say selected characters. And initially, these should both be the same. I think it'll make sense on why a little bit later. So I actually want to set state twice. I want to say this dot set state, and we are going to do all characters. And we are going to set that equal to data dot results. And that is just the list of characters that gets spit out from the Rick and Morty API. I'm pretty sure y'all are familiar with that API by now. If you're not and need me to slow down, let me know. I want y'all to understand what I'm doing, and feel free to call out if you really are struggling with the concept here. But I want to skip ahead to the stuff where we start manipulating the state of the parent component. I'm going to go a little bit more quickly over props. Cool, so let's see if that worked. I'm gonna go to my components. I'm gonna look in my app and hey, look, I have all my characters. Hey, look, I have all my selected characters. Awesome. The mindset behind having these two is that I'm going to change the selected characters, but I need to keep track of all the characters for when I don't want to have a selected thing anymore. So this is storing all of the characters, but I'm actually going to render the selected characters. Does that make sense to everybody? Cool. Now, we're going to go ahead and get these things on the page, and then maybe we'll think about styling for a second. So the way that React works is if I have an array that each element returns JSX, it stacks those on top of each other. So what our goal is to do is to get an array where maybe we have some sort of div here. In this div, maybe we have an image, right? Which doesn't have a closing tag. And then after that, we're gonna have a like header or something, right? So this will be maybe like card1 or something like that. And what we want is an array where that's one element. The next element will be for the next character, and so on and so forth. The easiest way to get to that is by doing a map. So what I'm going to do here is I want to map over the characters in my state. So the way that I'm going to start this is with some JSX code. I'm going to say this dot state dot, we're going to do it with selected characters. And now I am going to map over this. So first, let's do a simple map. Okay, so I'm actually going to put it on a different line. So that way everything stays nice and over to the left. Remember, we want our code to read vertically, not horizontally. So I like to do this sometimes with my JSX code. So now I know JSX starts here. I'm going to tab those in a little bit. Now I know my JSX starts here, and all I'm reading from here forth is JavaScript. So I'm going to do dot map characters. And for each character, right now, all I'm going to return is an H1 element. I'm sorry. We're taking our characters and we're mapping over them, and we're saying for each character. So I'm going to do an H1 element. We should always put this stuff in parentheses. I think it usually makes it a little more readable, especially because once we start expanding it, we can write it like real HTML code. So now that I have those parentheses in there, it knows that everything inside is the HTML that I'm rendering. And now I'm just going to say character.name. Cool. Let's see if I missed anything. Something looks wrong. What looks wrong? I'm missing a parentheses. So everybody see
around character.name.
what? Yep. So I'm just missing a character. Nope. Oh yeah, I do need the curly brackets around that. Good call. Bam. And I was missing a parenthesis as well. Cool. Awesome. So we have these. The app's called Damn It Morty. Let's not use an H1 actually. Let's use an H3. So I'm gonna go here. I think that'll be a little better to work with there. Now we get some separation. Well, we actually, instead of just rendering their name, we can, one of the really cool things about React is we can render a whole thing right here. So I'm going to do a card. I'm going to create a div. I'm going to give it a class name of card. And we're going to open up that div, move this H3 inside, and also we'll just throw the image in there now for shits and giggles. Not for shits and giggles. It actually just looks nice. So I'm going to say source equals, we're going to say character dot image. Nice. See what that did. Cool, we got that. For good practice, we should probably put some alt text on there. So maybe we can say, let's try alt equals, maybe we could do some string interpolation here, and I could say character, whoops, character dot name main picture. Cool. What is this saying?
It never likes your alt, no matter what you write.
Redundant alt attribute. Already announced image tags as image. You don't need to use the words image, photo, or picture. Oh. So I guess I could just do that. Okay. It's probably a semantic thing. And now when I click on these, so it also is it gives the alt text as Rick Sanchez, which is great. Cool. Also, what we might want to do is maybe if we want to access a specific card in the future, we can give the card not only a class, but also an ID. So I would like to call this like Rick Sanchez card. That's what I want this to wind up equaling. I think there's a Z there. But the problem is that the name that's given to me has a space there. So you don't have to do this part. I'm going to do it just for little funsies. I am going to say this is going to equal character.name, and we are going to dot replace all instances, which this is just, again, some JavaScript-y stuff, all instances of a space with a hyphen instead. And let's see if that worked. Boopity boop boop. We need to look at this card. Cool. So now I have the Rick Sanchez card. And also I think that that should be all lowercase. So I think I can just type in dot to lowercase. Bam. See if that works. Nice. So now what we want to do is, I don't think it's the worst thing in the world to style it at this point. After all, this is HTML. I can real quickly do that, and then we could worry about breaking apart the components from there. So I'm going to start with my index.css. My cards are all really, actually they should be in a container. So maybe instead of having this directly nested in the div, we could actually make like some sort of section here. Just think about that HTML. And then inside of that section is where we could do this. And we would probably give this section an ID because there's only going to be one cards container on the page for our app, but it's better to be specific. So we will call it cards container. Nice. So now I'm going to go ahead and think about some styling. All I want to do is take this cards container, which I'm going to start here. Cards, I'm going to leave some of the default styling in there because it's just nice for doing things quickly. I'm going to take these cards container and I want to make sure it's a flex in the horizontal direction or the row direction, and then I want to make sure that it wraps. So that way it's all continuous. So I'm going to say display flex, and then I'm going to say by default that should be a row. So first let's see what that did. Cool. And then I need to say wrap. There should be flex wrap pops up, and I could say wrap. And now look at that. But also they're a little bit too close together. So now I can edit the cards, the individual cards, and just put a margin on them. So I want to hit all the cards, not just a specific ID. So I'm just going to say margin. We'll go 10 pixels or something like that. Bam. Looks a lot nicer, don't it? Cool. At this point, we could even, center things if we wanted to. I'll go ahead and do that. So our app, we have an ID of app for the whole thing. So I could just go under here and say app, open that up, and we could do another display flex. And cool, that looks weird. We probably want that to be a column, right? So I'm just gonna say flex direction, and then column. And then we want it to kind of be in the center. So I'm just going to say align items center. Bam. Looks good. And it looks like we maybe want to align the items of the card container as well, which since it's a row, I think we need to do justify content. See if that did the trick. Yep. Cool. This looks a lot nicer, doesn't it? What was that, like 3 minutes of CSS or something? Now we get to enjoy our app more. All right. So here's the thing. React can turn into a clusterfuck if you let it get out of control. You can get to the point where you have all of this shit on one page, and then the higher you go in your component hierarchy, it becomes harder to read. So really what I'd like to have here is I would like to basically just put all of that, replace that with cards container. Bam. How are we going to do that? Somebody say something.
Make a new component.
Awesome. So we make a new component. So I'm curious if y'all feel like you'd rather me slow down and go over this, let me know. But my goal was to kind of go fast on like something that y'all can build and burn either after, or if you can't keep up during, you can get as much as you can done. Sometimes I think that's helpful. Just let me know if you want me to slow down, if you prefer that kind of class. Feel free to let me know. What I'm going to do here is I'm going to make a components folder. Bam. And inside of here, we want a cards container. So I'm going to import a cards container. I'm going to create a cards container. So cards container.js. Bam. And then we're also definitely going to need a card. So let's go card.js. Sweet. Who could tell me if these are going to be functional components or class components and why?
Functional, because you're just going to pass down the state from the parent.
Beautiful. Exactly. So we need to first get our cards container imported so that way we can even check to see why anything is breaking. So we're going to say import our variable name of cards container. This is what we're going to use in the file that we're in. And we're getting this from /components/cards container. I could put a .js at the end, but it's optional with this import syntax. Great. Cool. Now all I have is this empty page. All right. That's probably because I need to do this stuff somewhere in my cards container. So let's go to our cards container and at least just get the boilerplate function set up. So we're going to start with our import React from React. Then we are going to export as our default function. We're going to call it cards container. Open that up. What gets passed in here as an argument?
It's going to be characters when you pass it down, probably.
I'm going to say by default, a functional React component always accepts props as its argument. That's what its argument is. I could destructure that props and get characters out of props, but the thing that gets passed in is always props. For now, we're not going to destructure it. We're just going to say props. We can debug our code and clean it up. No, not debug, clean up our code after if we want. I want everybody who's like at their level of understanding to be able to like kind of keep up, and I don't want it to get too confusing. So for now, props is the object that gets passed through, And then of inside of props, whatever like specific key value pair I specify is how I can rephrase that better. Let's say I'm calling this component, cards container component, from the parent. If I say characters equals, some array, whatever, the way that I pull it out inside of here is that this props argument winds up being an object like this. And then characters winds up being the key, and the value to that props object is whatever array I put here. Like so, I could very easily say const characters equals props, dot characters. Nice. Or if I wanted to go a step further, yes, I could just destructure it and do this. And actually, let's just go ahead and do that. Hopefully, I went through enough steps to where everybody can kind of understand what's going on there. Awesome. Now, our function returns some sort of JSX. So we are going to do a return, open up that parentheses, and what are we going to return? Well, we're going to return whatever we had in here. So I am going to take all of this, cut that, bloopity bloop, and we are going to paste it in here. Get rid of these comments. Cool. We are going to fix this tabulation because I don't like seeing red. As should you. Not like, that was strange English. I want to see this dot map indented. And since these elements are being returned inside of that dot map, I want to see that indented as well. So now this becomes a lot more readable because I can sit there and look at what's going on. I can sit there and say, oh, okay, well, as a whole, I want to return a section. Within that section, I want to iterate through my characters, which I have to use a different, syntax here because this was back when we were over in the class. Now we're in a functional component. I actually need to be referencing this. Fortunately, I defined it right there, so I could just replace it with characters. Then I'm mapping over those characters, and then for each character, I'm returning this templating. Cool, so let's see if that works where it's at now. I don't see any errors here. That's a good sign. Oh, well, something happened. Why is it saying that? Well, that's saying that because here it's trying to pull characters out of its props, but we never passed characters in here. So all we got to do here is say characters equals this dot state dot selected characters. Bam, let's see if it works. Hey, it works. Huzzah. But we got to go one step further because this is still ugly. We can make it nicer. And more importantly, we want to, if this is a card, what if I had, let's say I had maybe another feature that I'm not adding on this version of the project, but later on, maybe I want to click on like Jerry. And if I click on Jerry, he goes into like my saved characters, right? So if that's the case, it would be really nice if I could just have a card component. That way I could pass in Jerry's information to a card component, whether or not it's in the cards container or a totally different container. It'd be nice if I could have a component that represents a card, regardless of where it's coming from. So I could take this functionality and rip it out and make it a card, which is exactly what we're going to do. So just like before, import React from React, export default function card, bam, bam. And what do we think our card is going to take in? What type of data do we think card is going to pull in as its props? One card is a card for a...
Character.
Yay! We're going to put a character in there. Cool. Then I'm going to go here, and I don't think I have to change really anything. Just rip this out. Bloopity bloop. And we are going to say return. Bam. Wow. How did that end up so weird? It's bizarre, right? Cool. So now, will this work? Let's find out. Refresh the page. Wait, why is that working? Oh, because I didn't save this. Okay. Now it's not working, but that's just because this has nothing. How do I actually now hook up my card to the card's container? Well, firstly, this card's container needs to be aware of the card. So first I need to import it. I need to say import card from ./card.js or ./card. Now my cards container is aware of the card, and I can just call it as a component. So I can go here, and this still won't work because I haven't passed down any props. So I'm going to go ahead and say character equals character. And it's important to note that in this case, this character is a value that we're setting. We're setting the key in the key value pair on props. Then we are setting the value of that equal to whatever comes out of this map. Awesome. Think it works now. Great. So we've successfully taken all of this, and now all I have in my return statement, it's very easy to read. I have my cards container with characters, and that's almost nothing to read. Pretty friggin' sweet. If I wanted to, I can simplify this a little more. Inside of my, just like we could destructure props, we could also destructure state. So I could say selected characters equals this dot state. And you don't have to do this, but this is optional. We said const. And now I can just do selected characters. Pretty sweet. If that's tough to wrap your brain around, do it the way you know for now. You definitely don't have to do it that way right now. So let's go ahead, check it out. Everything's still working, nothing breaks. This is pretty clean looking code, isn't it? Nice. Win for React. Now we got to make a form. So we're going to give it it's a special form name, so we'll give it a special form name. Let's call it search character form. Bam. So now we have a search character form. Let's just get that built out real quick. So I'm going to create a new component. Well, first I'm going to import it, even though it's not there. That way I just don't forget to do it later. So I'm going to say ./components. Whoops. Probably should put that in strings first. And then now I'm going to say, what do we call it? Search character form. So search character form. Awesome. We're going to go ahead and build a search character form file. And let's just get something in there So like always, import React from React. And then we are going to say export default function, and we are going to call it search character form. It's going to take in props, but we don't really need to use those props, so we're not too concerned about it yet. Then we're going to go ahead and say, let's just return something. So we're going to return, I don't know, we're going to do a form. Bam, and let's just do an input. Let's do a label. Oh, that should be a lowercase. This is just HTML. So we are going to say label. Bam, we will say input or search character by name. Couple spaces in there. And then we'll have input. You probably want to type equals text. Bam. See what that's doing here. Search character form is not defined. That's in my app.js. Okay. So what did we mess up?
I think it was your import.
Yep. Import search character form from that. Now, here's a question. Let's say I have this guy right here. Can I change its name to something else and it'll still work? I want to call this cheese. And then I'm going to call this cheese. Who thinks it'll work? Who thinks it won't work? All right, put
I
up a
always
1.
support cheese.
You will support the cheese? I think it will work too. And indeed it does. So an important thing to remember here is that we want to name it semantically, so it's good to name it correctly. But what we're doing is, with this import statement, is we're saying import this variable. We're going to say declare this variable as whatever the default export of this is. So because we used default export, that means that this, whatever we put here, is going to be what that default export was. If we wanted to, what we could do is this. Let's go like this. We're going to go search character form. Oh, you know what? I should do that with, okay, cool. I'm just going to leave it like it is. So what I could do also is this. And I actually, if I do it this way, let's see. I think that might be a little more complicated than I'd like to get into now. For now, we're just going to stick with this syntax. There's a way to export modules to where you can pull out a specific function. That's what you're actually doing here. You're pulling out a specific function on a module. But I think that there's a syntax for that that I don't want to get into right now. Awesome. So now we have our form. We have our characters on the screen. The next thing that we're going to want to do is the state of my parent component needs to be aware of the state of whatever's on here. If I type in Morty, my app needs to know that I typed in Morty, not just my form. How do we do that? Well, let's start with step 1. We can initialize some kind of state, right? That's a given. I'll say input value. For now, we'll just do that. And we're just going to initialize it as an empty string. Not worry too much about it. Does anybody know how, from inside my form, I can control the state of app? Anybody have an idea?
You need to pass a function down to the search character,
Nope.
or
So
the search form.
this is the hardest thing, I think, to get about React, is that what we have to do is when we have either a function or a class, it doesn't matter, wherever I define it, in this case, I've defined, like, let's say I define a function, right? All my function is going to do is set the state of selected characters, right? So I am just going to say, actually, we're not even going to do set the state of selected characters for now. What I want to do is this. I want to create a function. I'm going to do an ES6 function now, and we're going to actually show you the difference on why we use ES6 functions. I am going to say const, let's say, we're going to call it set selected characters. And this, well, we're not going to use const. Sorry. We don't use the const word. I'll explain why in a bit. Here, we're going to have a value of input. And then we're going to use our fat arrow syntax, which, by the way, isn't that really cool? Isn't that awesome? Look at that. That's some nifty. I love it. I don't know why. So we're going to set our selected characters. And then inside of here, all I want to do is console.log this. Okay? So we're going to pass this down, this whole function, which is bound to app. We are going to pass it down into a child component. So I'm going to pass it down into my character form. I am going to say set selected characters. Actually, I'm going to call it filter characters. Is what I like that better. Filter characters. Great. So I am going to pass in filter characters as a prop into my search character form. Cool. So how do I trigger that? This is we're getting into React events. So in order to do this, I want to make it to where it's an on-change event. So an on-change event will fire every letter that I press, it will fire. So just to show you, I'm going to go ahead and do it. It works very similar to HTML event listeners in that you put it right there on the element. So on this input, I am going to put an on-change event. And just like in HTML, an on-change event takes a callback function. In our props here, we're passing down a function. Let's take a look at the function we're passing down. If I go to my form up here, the prop that we have this filter characters function. So that means I'm going to destructure this so it's easier to read. And all that means is that I'm pulling out filter characters from the props object and setting it equal to a variable called filter characters. Now I can put in here filter characters. Now remember, filter characters, this is not an invoked function. This is the name of a function. It is a callback function. That is what an event listener will take. It will take a function, not an invoked function. Awesome. So let's see what's happening here. Boop, 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 boop. I'm typing. Everybody see how some stuff is coming up? Do you see how the first thing logged is that it says app? Everybody see that? Awesome. The reason why app is what's being logged when I console log this is because what we made was an ES6 function. So an ES6 function is when you set a variable name equal to a function. Since this variable is bound to this class, that means that this represents the whole class of app. In contrast, let's make this thing a ES5 function. And do the exact same thing. Give that a save. And let's now start typing stuff. Huh. Everybody see how it says undefined? This is the reason why we say to use ES6 functions in React, especially when you're doing something like this. I hate that the thing's called this, because now if I say you're doing something like this with this, it's just too many thises in a sentence. Does anybody have questions about that? This is definitely something I'd like to take a second to be like, hey, let me answer some questions, because this is the thing that I wanted to get to. This is the thing I wanted to get to, also meaning the word this.
With what you had, it doesn't matter that you didn't like declare function when you were defining that, did it? Or
no, because I think what it boils down to, yeah, you can't declare function here. Function. Pretty sure this doesn't even work. Let's try it out. Wow, I've been writing too much Ruby. Let's see. So this breaks because it does not expect a function keyword when you're inside a class. So I think when you define things, you don't usually define variables on the class. You bind those variables to the class. It's a little out of my scope of full understanding, but I definitely think it's worth kind of at least committing to memory a little bit that the ES6 functions, when you reference this inside of them, you're talking about the whole class. And it's the reason why now if I do set state here, I can set the state of the parent component from the child component. Does that make sense to everybody? Cool. So let's do that. So first, let me make sure I'm actually passing an input through on my character form, because I don't know that I am, right? So I'm not. Does anybody know how I can pass that in? Does anybody know how I pass in my input value?
can't you? Do you need to pass it in? Can't you just pull it from event, which is implied?
Yep. How do I pull it from the, oh, wait, yeah, you're right. Yeah, I don't even need to do that. I was overcomplicating it for a second. Yeah, so now I'm filtering it in with event, and let's console.log this, and then also let's well, we don't need to console.log this anymore. We're just gonna say console.log event, and I'm gonna say .target .value. So who knows what the event target is? Someone explain to me, what is the event target in this case?
That box you're typing in.
The box I'm typing in, exactly. More specifically, the event target, right? In this case, because I put it on an HTML element, like the event target is right there. That's what it is. So cool. Sweet. So we're gonna go back to here, and we have our event.target.value. Now all we need to do is figure out a way to actually filter these characters. Does anybody have an idea on how we would do that?
Regex.
Regex? Yeah, I could do it a little simpler than regex, but you could use regex. So what I'm going to do is I am going to use a filter. I am going to say, let's make a new variable. We'll call it, and I'm inside of a function now, so I could do this. I'm going to create a new variable, and I'm going to call it filtered characters. And we know that this is going to be some transformation of all the characters, right? So I'm going to start with all the characters. Then I'm going to filter that. What's broken here? Somebody tell me.
Needs to be this dot state.
So now we have this dot state dot whoops dot all characters, and we need to filter this down. Fortunately, JavaScript is really nice about white space, and I can just put this in another line down here. So I'm going to do dot filter, and we are going to say for each character, I want you to only return it to me if character dot name, and I'm going to say dot lowercase. This is don't get too worried about this, but I'm going to say character. I want to take the name and I want to lowercase it just to see. Let's say I'm comparing Rick to Rick. I want to make sure that that still works just fine. So I want to lowercase both of these, both of the things that I'm comparing. So first I want to lowercase the name, and then I want to say if it includes and then I'm going to say the input. What is the input here? In fact, we could do a whole different line for that just so we don't get confused. What is the input going to be?
Is that the event.target.value?
Yep. So we have our input is the event.target value, and we just want to say if our character name, lowercase, includes our input, we're also going to lowercase that. Oh, you can't do dot lowercase. It's dot to lowercase, and then you have to invoke it. Sorry. That looks nicer.
I think the C needs caps as well.
It does. Thank you. Nice. And this looks kind of ugly. So actually, I could make this prettier by going like this. Maybe I want my filter to be very clear on what is being filtered here. So now I know that all that is what's being filtered. And then I'm saying for each character, and if I want to, I can expand this out like that. Now I need those parentheses because this is an implicit return. Oh, should have been that. Oh, what did I fuck up? Oh, I didn't need that. Oops. So now we're saying for each character, I want to return the condition, which is character.name, lowercase, and then see if it includes the input, lowercase. To me, that's pretty readable. And all we want to do now is set our state to what it was. So I could say this dot set state, and I'm going to go into my selected characters, right? Which I always forget I need this because I'm very used to writing Ruby. This is going to look bad for a second. Selected characters is going to equal our filtered characters, right? And to me, that's a pretty readable chunk of code. Probably could be cleaned up in a few areas, but for now, we'll accept that. Awesome. Am I done? I don't know. Let's find out. Looks like it. Cool. And now we've got 20 minutes where y'all can just ask me a bunch of questions. I'll keep the recording going. How did y'all feel about that? Did you like that style of build and burn? Did you think that maybe I should go slower and explain things a little more clearly? What do y'all think? I'm very open to feedback here.
No, I think it's good. You covered a lot. I'm glad you're recording it.
Sweet. All right, so what questions do y'all got? I know y'all got some questions. Is there anything you want me to go back over?
You go back to your app code real quick. I think I got something on includes.
I would not have gotten this part so quickly if I didn't just do it right before this. So just so y'all don't think I'm some kind of wizard. I went through that logic just before this. So it's not like I had all those insights. We are recording, right? I really hope we're recording.
Yeah.
Yeah, we're recording. Good.
Can you show your search character form again?
Oh. Forgot to commit the whole time. That was bad practice. But guess what? Now y'all could go to github.com/jjhiggs/Rick and Morty filter build and burn, and you too can check out this code. I'll go ahead and post that in the Zoom channel. Oh, Jen was not here to appreciate the cheese. Bam. Now, I would really strongly recommend trying to do this without looking at any code. But if you can't, that's okay. But it's better to figure out hone in on what you can't do. One thing that's like really interesting about when you're really diving deep into React is it forces you to learn some JavaScript concepts a little bit deeper. It forces you to learn a little bit more ES6 stuff. It forces you to learn a little bit more destructuring, imports, all of that stuff. You don't know it, but you're actually just learning JavaScript. And that's kind of one of the cool things about React versus other frameworks. Like, I don't know if any of y'all sat in on Kyle's Ember lesson or if you've sat in on any of the Vue lessons. Those frameworks use languages that are kind of like JavaScript, but not technically JavaScript. React is all technically JavaScript. So you're learning JavaScript while you're learning React, even if you don't think you are, which is kind of cool.
Hey, John, your GitHub isn't updated.
Is it not?
I think you didn't push it.
Oh, I didn't push it. That's exactly what it is.
Thanks. I have an error. I don't know where it's from.
Git push. Oh, I think I have to do origin main now. They changed the wording.
Yeah, it keeps throwing me off. It's like, but I still have master sometimes.
Yeah, that's weird. I made a new repo today and I was able to use master. I was not expecting to.
I
Yeah,
haven't seen main. I've never even seen that.
they just changed it like today. I think it's like a political thing. It's like to make sure like they're not using like slave phrases.
Yeah.
But is it working now? Yeah, I don't know what I clicked on. Looks like it.
I like your GitHub icon.
Thank you. It's literally just from my phone. I created like the memoji
Yeah.
just for all the peoples out there watching this video.
You gotta update it though, because you don't have that beard anymore.
I'm gonna grow it back. Don't worry. It's coming back. I'm getting it back. Winter's coming. If any of you ever want to make your GitHubs cooler, let me know. I found a cool little thing that works for this.
John, on your card component,
Yeah.
where you're doing the replace from the space to the dash, is that 2 dashes and a G and then a comma?
Yeah, so this is don't stress too much about this, but this is like a weird way to trick. It's how you do replace all in JavaScript. I'll pull up a terminal real quick just to show you. Let's say I have a string like, hello, my name is John, and I want to take this and I want to replace all the hyphens with something else. Well, replace will only replace the first one. So if I say let's replace hyphen with a space, right? Oh, I'm not in Node. I was like, why isn't that working? I'm not even in Node. Let's open up Node Node first. I'm gonna copy and paste that line. Cool. So you see how it only did it on the first one? So the way that you would do that is I would do the same thing, except for when I do my dot replace, I would use a regex. This is regex actually. So when you do 2 slashes, everything inside of here is regex. And then after that regex expression, you could put a G to replace every instance of that. So here, I want to replace all instances of hyphen with a space. Damn.
Stands for global, right? So
Yeah,
the
it
G
stands
is.
for global. That's how I remember it.
Sometimes there's like an I there too. I've seen in some regex. Do you know what that is?
Nope, no idea. I'm not that great at regex. I know like enough to get by. I am not very skilled at it. This is like the main time I use regex is for doing that in JavaScript. If I'm being 100% honest, I usually avoid it. It's good for certain things, but also like I would say you don't really need to go down the rabbit hole too far with regex until you're mod 6, just because it's only really useful for coding challenges. And it's like a lot of times you'll Google the regex. You'll be like, oh, what's good regex for email validations? It won't be like, oh, let me come up with this myself. And you'll learn a lot of it like through absorption. And it can't hurt to get good at it eventually. But it's also like regex, from my understanding, is not actually like an efficient algorithm. So it's not even the greatest for like high-end coding challenges anyways. It's really nice for doing some things though. Don't get me wrong. It's really nice for being like, let me create email validations. If it meets these conditions, those conditions you define in regex or something like that.
Is there a way to replace all like that without using regex? I thought there was a replace all iterable like that.
There
but
is a
I
replace
thought I could
iterable, but I don't know how it works. If I'm gonna be 100%.
I think ironically, I think they replaced it or removed it from like.
Yeah,
I feel like I saw that it was like a dead.
I think I saw that too. I think replace all doesn't always work.
Like there might be a note saying that it's like considered not best practices anymore, or that it's been like considered like a dead iterable.
Yeah, I don't even know that it works. Let's try it. Replace all. Replace all is not a function. There you go. Doesn't even work anymore. I think I've run into that issue before. It doesn't work. I wonder why they got rid of it. It is nice. It would be nice. It makes more sense to me than the -G. See what they say. Can't find anywhere that says it's outdated, but it just isn't working. It also might just not work in Node. It might work in your browser. Fuck. Oh, you know what? I fucked up. Whatever. So I'm gonna say, hello, my friend. And then, oh shit. Oh man. There we go. Dot replace all. Whoops. All. And then we're going to say space with hyphen or something. Oh, so it works in the browser. Doesn't work in Node.
That's super weird.
Super weird. Good to know, though. Okay, cool. I just want to make sure my shit was working. Damn it. I fucked something up. I have to go here and damn, I think that'll do it. Yeah. Sorry, my keyboard is weird. This keyboard is programmable, but it has one of the worst programming interfaces I've ever used. So sometimes I love the keyboard. It's an amazing keyboard, but that is annoying. Does anybody have any questions on the React stuff? I know y'all have React questions, and I'm good for a whole nother 15 minutes. Nothing? All right, we'll struggle with doing that. Keep working on it. Just build and burns is your key here with React. It's just going to kind of click for you. So that's kind of my suggestion there. All righty.
A
Thanks,
good one.
John.
Thank you.